everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 11 of season 2 of Mob Psycho 100, and I'd be really sad, but this is not the penultimate episode. No, we still have 2 episodes after this, as well as an OVA before we dive into season 3, but man, season 2, I feel like the first half of season 2, kind of went maybe slower because it was just Reagan and Mob, and then ever since episode 8, it's just been like boom, 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 just one thing after another, and it's been crazy, right? So, oh my god. But yeah, I have a couple comments. We've got quite a Reagan thirst update. I've got a cold. I have a cold. I had a horribly sore throat a day ago, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to record any reactions. Took some cold medicine. This is what I sound out like now. I don't feel 100%, but I'm maybe Mob, I'm just teetering on at 98, 99, right? But I'm so excited by this. We have our Elite 5 that are, our Elite 4 are our fantastic Ultimate 5 that we're facing. I definitely think Shimazaki and Sarahzawa are the most strong because they're holding down the fort. But we have Minigishi who has the plants. And then we have the one guy, the Hulk guy got taken out last episode by Goda, the goat of all goats. I was like, hell yeah. So we got one Ultimate 5 guy taken out. We have the plant guy left. We have Sarahzawa with the umbrella. We have the one that can teleport, Shimazaki. And then we also have the guy, I realized looking at the thumbnail for episode 9, he has a pigeon on his sweater, which is hilarious, but he's the one that does the drones and all the tech stuff. I feel like he's not going to be hard to take out. I feel like he's just kind of there to create a barrier, as a support. But the teleporting one, Sarahzawa, and the plant one, they're the 3 that we got to take care of now. And what are we going to do about it? So I've poured some tea because that seemed like the best course of action, but it's still way too hot to drink. But we got a couple comments before we get in this and the Reagan thirst update, of course. Vidal Moscoso. I laughed so hard at this comment, but back before we started season 2, we had the minis, the Mob Psycho minis, and they were the little 8-bit pixel stories, and one of them involved Reagan getting a Brazilian wax. And so Vidal's comment said, so does this mean in episode 8 that the Brazilian wax Reagan got in the minis is canon? And I was like, yes, it does, because he had his little tight running shorts on. I was like, that's amazing. So canon, Reagan, Brazilian wax, officially canon. We can all say that. I like when the extras become part of the canon in the show. I like that a lot. And then EQ had a really good comment. EQ talked about Reagan's iconic running shorts. I like that they're iconic, of course, him and his short shorts. But also, the EDs apparently changed to show peripheral characters as they're shown. I made the comment, I was like, oh, look, there's Show's friends in the last episode. Yeah, so I think maybe I've noticed, but I never really noticed, if that makes sense. I saw it, but it didn't hit me that each time it was different. So it'll be cool when the season's over to go back and rewatch them all in my own time and be like, oh yeah, look at that. But also, I did like EQ's comment about how at the beginning of episode 8, Mob was dealing with crying over a skinned knee, and then by the end of episode 8, even though the things were horrific that were happening, it was all a matter of him he just ran a 5K and then walked into a burning building and was saying, it's okay, it's all right. As EQ would say, that's growth. And I was like, I love it. So I don't know, of all of our players so far, as we're entering into these penultimate episodes, 11 and 12, so far, Ritsu and Sho, I'm a little worried about because they're going up against Sarahzawa and the boss. I don't know what that's going to look like. I am a little bit worried about them. Definitely worried about Ray and the others underground facing the teleporting one. Super worried about them. But Mob and Reagan and Dimple, they're kind of okay right now. So what do we do with that? Still too hot. I feel like Reagan, I was like, hot. I don't know what to do with that, but I guess we'll see, right? But before we start, we need to really quickly tie into the Reagan thirst update. Patreon had some great gems for y'all this week. I actually have watched this YouTube personality for years. I love them. Their name is Brian David Gilbert. I he may be a spiritual connecting force, because I feel like I channel his energy sometimes. But I absolutely love Truck shared this edit where is Brian David Gilbert. He was doing something along I think it's the characters of Skyrim. He was doing something along those, of which ones were like the hottest. But he has a photo and it's been photoshopped where he's like, if you're not attracted to this, you're wrong, and it's Reagan. And yes, fair point. And next month we'll be doing the husbando bracket, and guess what, y'all? Reagan managed to make it on both the husbando and waifu brackets. Reagan sweep 2023. We'll see. But yeah, he made it onto both because Patreon knows. They know what's up. So I thought that one was really great. This tweet here is actually an animated thing, and I didn't want to show it because I would just say go to Felix with a PH. Felix Fee. It's a Felix_XS on Twitter. And they have a thing where they did an age swap where Mob is the adult and Reagan is the middle schooler. And it's super cute. I really, really love it. I would definitely go check it out if you've not seen it. It's absolutely wonderful. And then I'm going to show you the Mob one first. I love this one of Mob and Denji from Chainsaw Man, where they're both like, Denji having like the middle school jacket undone and Mob there. Have to say though, without spoilers, if Mob and Denji were to trade worlds and Denji were in the world of Mob Psycho and Mob was in the world of Chainsaw Man, be pretty interesting. It'd be very interesting indeed, right? And then finally, it wouldn't be the Reagan Thirst update without just a wee bit of Reagan Thirst. And Reagan playing the game of billiards with himself like hunched over the pool table. Come on. And Dimple's just sitting there like, okay. Come on. I'm not gonna diss it. Not gonna diss it at all. So, y'all, we've had the Reagan Thirst update. As per Reagan, this is still way too hot to drink. Maybe by the time the episode's over, it'll be better. But we need to dive into this episode and just see what the hell happens, because I don't know what we're getting. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? We are going to start episode 11 of Mob Psycho Season 2. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do this. I want to apologize to everyone that did not read that headphone warning when Reagan showed up. Because as soon as he said that he could sense all the espers, Shimazaki was, I was like, well, this would be a great time for Reagan to show up because he's so focused on sensing espers and he can't see that Reagan, who cannot be detected, would be amazing to show up and just save the situation. And then, cheers, here we are. Oh my God. I just can't. Oh my gosh, this is just hilarious, y'all. Hilarious. Oh my God. This episode was great. The fight scenes were wonderful. The animation was spectacular, but everybody all came together and then Mob said, y'all sit down. Let me handle this. And it's so amazing because I wanted to bring Whiteboard Kun out. I don't know how much I'll use Whiteboard Kun, but I wanted to bring him out because I feel like we need to map out like where everybody is so far, because we have 2 episodes left of the season. Obviously, I think the conflict is going to be somewhat resolved in these next 2 episodes, or at least reaching a resolution. It may carry on in season 3, it may not. So we put where our ultimate 5, right? The ultimate 5 and where they are at so far. The one, I'm going to call him the Hulk. I always forget his name. He's been defeated. He was defeated by Goda and Dimple. Probably the weakest of the 5, honestly, which is funny because he's the one that's the hulked out strong one, and he's the weakest of the 5, right? Then we have Minigishi, who Megami of all people takes out. Oh my gosh, I did not see that one coming. That he was getting Matsuo showed up clutch in the last second. Of course he did, right? He was defeated. He was defeated by Megami. I guess the really weakest one was the one that controls the drones, right? We're going to put him on here. The ones that has the drones. He was defeated by Sho. So technically, I think he was the weakest one, right? So we have Megami, Sho, Goten, and Dimple. And then we have Shimazaki. Shimazaki wasn't really defeated. He just ran away. He was like, nope. So I think that's funny that the ones... I said that the two that were the most strong were Shimazaki and Sarahzawa, and I still think that they are, and I think Shimazaki is just like, ha, no. And we find out about Shimazaki that he really, he just follows the boss. He follows the boss because he's strong. And if he's strong, he gets to do whatever he wants. Because he said he just came there for fun. And then Mom gives him a scolding, which we'll get to. But that he didn't really care about this whole world domination thing. So he was just following a strong boss to do whatever he wanted. To not be limited, right? Then we have Sarahzawa, who is about to face Mob. And see where that goes. My big question is, what... Sarahzawa, his motivation so far that we've seen is to become a quote-unquote CEO like Sho's dad, the boss. But Shimazaki says that's not possible in this world. This isn't like a company. You don't work your way up the corporate ladder here. It's world domination. There's a difference, right? So I'm very curious to find out what the heck Sarahzawa is going to do. Like, what's his real motivation? Is it that simple? Is Sarahzawa, they said he's a shut-in. Is he just, like, emotionally stunted? Is this just, has he been shut inside his house all this time and doesn't know what's out there? Maybe. I feel like that could be the case. He's just a really strong Esper that was been, like, stuck this whole time. I don't know. But we don't really know much about his motivation other than that. I don't think he's here for world domination. I think he's just kind of, you know, misguided by the boss, right? So we're down to these two that are left. Now, whether Shimazaki ends up doing anything, he disappeared. I don't know. He conveniently wrote himself out of the plot with this episode, and he could conveniently become a Deus Ex Machina over the next 2 episodes. We'll just have to wait and see. But Sarahzawa is by far... Sarahzawa of the Ultimate 5 is by far my favorite. I really like... I'm curious about his character. He seems kind of like Mob, so it's funny that he's facing Mob. I'm very curious to see what we get with him. And then we have Sho and his dad, who his dad has a stockpiling quirk. His dad is essentially all for one, basically. And so we have Sho and his father. And they have the ability to stockpile energy. Sho stored it for 3 months. His dad has stored it for 20 years. Which, now that makes sense. Because I was like, oh, well, he doesn't seem like he's very strong. He doesn't do anything. No, because he's conserving all of his energy. So, that's rather terrifying. He might actually be halfway decent. Okay. But, we had these Espers facing Teru in them. It is noteworthy that the man with the pompadour and then Asahi, I'm pretty sure his name's Asahi, the blonde one, they both have gotten stronger. I think that is worth noting. Because, yeah, they do actually create larger amounts of psychic energy. And then Teru's like, okay, so what do we do? And of course, the one guy is like, I was just pretending to betray you all so I could lure them to a false sense of security. And I like that the one guy, he's the one brother. His name starts with a D. I think he does the lie detector thing to see if he's actually betrayed them or not. Luckily for him, he hasn't. And so they asked, what are we going to do now? And Teru says, Reagan said we didn't have to fight, but I disagree. We're going to take our city back. So we established this 2 different modes of thought here. That Teru wants to reclaim the city and fight. I feel like Reagan didn't want to get them involved because he doesn't want them getting hurt, especially Mob. So Reagan Reagan is surprisingly pacifist, which is interesting because he's been the one that's like stopped all the battles thus far in this season. And in the last season, he's like been the one to stop the conflict. He's surprisingly like peaceful and pacifist, right? He says there is no need to fight. Like, okay, Reagan. All right. He seems he wants to be like establish the peace, right? And honestly, Sarahzawa at the end of this episode in the after credits was kind of the same way. He was like, go home, little kid. You don't need to be here. Don't get in the way. Don't get hurt. So it's curious. There is a little bit of a connection. There is a little bit of a connection with Sarahzawa in not wanting conflict. Because he stopped Joseph earlier, Sarahzawa did, because he was because he was getting in a fight with the boss. So both Reagan and Sarahzawa have this kind of like, they don't want to start conflict. They want to just keep it off, right? Interesting. Interesting. And then we have our OP. So, yeah, we get Ritsu and Sho, and I love that Sho has it so bad for Ritsu. He really does, right? He's like, why are you helping me out? And Ritsu says, I understand where you're coming from. Your situation isn't completely unrelatable. He's like, there's times I would worry what would happen if my brother went berserk and his powers went out of control. Your father is doing that right now. That's kind of cool. I like this idea that Ritsu compares to Mob, how Sho is to his father. And there's this really cool connection that Mob and Sho's dad are both these espers that have insane psychic abilities. And now he's like, your dad needs to be stopped. So again, we're going to go back to the question of if Mob went out of control, who could stop him? Mob's in control right now. Hopefully it stays that way. If he gets Ritsu to stay back, we should be good. But then Shimazaki shows up, of course. And Ritsu, I love that Ritsu's like, I'll distract him. It's so romantic, right? He's like, I'll distract him. And Sho's like, he's insanely strong. And Ritsu's like, you just gotta promise me you'll stop your dad if I hold him back. And I love the Sho's like, I'm glad you have around. I'm glad I have you around. You want to like go get coffee after this? I am really falling for Ritsu and Sho as a duo. I like them. Sho reminds me a little bit of Teru. Different, but a little bit similar to them. And then you have our poor Kageyama boys who are so passionate. Man, I am going to fast forward through the fight with Ritsu and Shimazaki because it was hard to watch. I did not like seeing Ritsu getting pummeled into a little pulp. Did not like seeing that at all. No, sir. But honestly, the funny thing about it is that the animation is so amazing here. And Ritsu has no qualms with fighting and using his powers to do. It's fascinating that you have Ritsu and Sho and Teru and the other psychics who are all battling using their powers. And Mob's the one that's like, we should not be fighting against each other with these powers. No. That's so fascinating. But of course, Sho running to the top, running into the one guy with the drones, and he just knocks him out. He's like, screw this guy. Yeah, he went down like one hit. And then Mob saying how awful someone used psychic powers to do this. So that's the thing. Where's Mob at? I'm going to put Mob over here. Mob is very much under this mentality that psychic powers are not for destruction. And we'll talk to Megami's whole speech there, because I do think Megami brings up a point. He brings up a point there at the end, right? But Mob is just upset that these people just wasted the city. He's like, that's not fair. And then this one guy looks like Atsumu from Haikyuu. Him and his goons show up. They've been like pillaging and raiding like the convenience store. Mob's like, that's the convenience store my brother and I went to. He's like, how dare you? And so the moment that Mob is like, he's just floating there, Mob like looks down with one eye. He's like, stop using your powers like this. I'm like, oh God, no! Mob's gonna freak out. He's like, stop it. And then I love that we have the artificial espers in the red, and we have Mob, who's the natural, in the blue. He's like, this kid's a natural esper. He says, could you guys manufacture this can? Mom basically says, he gives the speech that a parent would give to their kid, right? Where he's like, did you make this stuff? Did you put it in these boxes? Did you ship it out? You didn't do all the hard work, so quit trying to take it. I'm like, oh my God, Mom! It's great. He's like, did you actually grow the vegetables in the sandwich? So who gave you the right? And I love Dimples out the sideline going, he's pissed. I'm backing up. I love it. And they're like, you can make anyone submit as long as you have power. And Mob says, don't use psychic powers against others. He takes Reagan's words. He's like, this is what my master taught me. He says, if you don't have anyone who can give you that advice, I'll do it. I was like, oh shit! So Mob is basically saying that Mob is going to teach you. If you didn't have a teacher, Mob's going to be the one to do it. Right? Oh my God. And Dimple's like, yeah, I'm backing up right now. And that's when Minigishi shows up. I think it's interesting to note that Mob makes a note about Minigishi. I'm going to put it over here. Saying that you actually hate plants, don't you? And Minigishi's like, yeah, they're just tools. And so I think that is a good that's a good kind of commentary there, that Mob's like, you don't use these plants and stuff because you like them. They're getting destroyed. You use them because you hate them. And he's like, yeah, I can just use them. They're tools for me to use for myself. And it's like, And you can feel that Mob's kind of disgusted by that, right? It's so weird when he becomes Super Saiyan Mob, his eyes look different. And then that's when we cut back to Shimazaki. Shimazaki, for a brief second, for a hot second, Shimazaki tries to get Ritsu to join him and tells him he should join them, right? He said, you should join our side. That might be easier, but it's no fun. I love it. I love that Ritsu's like, no. Ritsu, put him on here. Ritsu is not for the easy route. No, sir. He's like, I'm too proud for that. Nah. Ritsu's got the sense of justice. He's not going to go that way. And he's like, well, you should see the difference in our abilities. You sure you won't change your mind if I hurt you a bit more? But Ritsu, he's like, you can't brainwash me. They tried that last season with Claw. That's not going to work. He's like, I always wanted to be able to use psychic powers. But now that I finally awakened, I understand. To shed blood, sweat, and tears in order to live a fun life. What I really wanted was that kind of wholehearted devotion. So Ritsu was just wanting, onto Huckleberry. He says that he realized that to have fun came at a cost. And everything that he had wanted all his life, now that he has it, he realizes the sacrifices that are made for that ability, and he doesn't want to take it for granted anymore, right? And then that's when Shimazaki's like, maybe you aren't a good fit for us. You're not somebody you're not doing this for the reasons that our group is. So, and then the other members of Claw show up, and Teru shows up, and it's just an animation free-for-all. And Teru has the good strategy where Teru's like, if we keep fighting and cornering him, we'll figure out his movements one by one as he tries to attack us. And Teru finally gets down to it. Works. The animation in this scene, just the moment that Sakurai is bending down and sweat is pouring off of him, it's so good. It's so good. Oh my God. It's great. But yeah, they keep on attacking, and meanwhile Mob is trying to fend off the attacks from the artificial espers, and that's when Matsuo shows up. I love he just comes out of the smoke. He's like, I'm having some trouble. And I love he has the canisters in his hands. They look like firecrackers. And Minigishi is eye twitches. He's like, what is this? And then he leads all of his monsters out except Megami, because he's like, I can't control Megami. Nope. That's a big old negatory. And they're like, he's going to send his monsters at us. And so they all come up, and then Minigishi's like, don't underestimate me. And that's when the guy that looks at Sumu, he's like, no, don't open up the jar. He's like, it's just got bad taste. He's like, I can't control it. And they say, because we have Minigishi, we're fine. So there's this assumption there's this assumption that strength equals safety. But like Mom says, there's always going to be somebody stronger than you. So you can't really assume that, right? And then Matsu was like, no, why'd you do it? And they instantly just... I love that. It's so creepy because Megami doesn't like... He doesn't pull like a genie where he like rises out of the jar or anything. No, you don't even know he's there. And then suddenly he's absorbing your spirit. Creepiest thing. Megami is such a terrifying presence, right? And he just keeps getting stronger and stronger. And Mob's like, oh God, no. And he's like, you're lowly creatures. And I love that Minigishi's like, what the hell is that? And I love the idea that it like spirals around his body and like forms a rib cage and like grows up into this being. And then once Mob kind of tames him, he becomes a tree. It's so good. The animation's amazing. He tells, I love the little, we cut from this horrific gathering of dark energy to create this spiraling tree of Megami to seeing like Mob and Ritsu get like the popsicle sticks. And Ritsu says winner and Mom says we. Oh my God. But yeah, it just becomes, I love the shading, like Bones makes everything, it gets dark. And then Megami's become like this tree entity. And Mob's like, please stop. Why are you trying to stop me? None of these insects deserve to live. I love the insect motif that's with Megami. He makes the comment. Megami does. Megami says that there are humans who never change. Basically saying that like Show's dad, there's going to be some that never change and they're just going to be evil. But Mob disagrees. He's like, they might be able to change. I love that Mob's like, no, Mob has faith. Faith that people can change. Right? And so he's like, no, they could possibly change. He's like, come on, Minigishi, you promise you won't do things. He's like, I promise. He's like, see? And Megami's like, well, that's naive. He could just be lying so he could survive. Are you going to watch over them until they've reformed? Are you going to take responsibility and keep an eye on them forever? And Mob's like, I can't do that. No. But we need to have faith in one another to get through life. So like, yeah, he's like, no, I can't watch them. No, I can't guarantee. I can't guarantee they won't cause trouble. But we got to have faith. Right? I feel like it's almost like a Goku and Frieza moment where Goku chose in Dragon Ball Z. I feel like this isn't spoilers. If you've not seen Dragon Ball Z, what anime have you watched? So I feel like in Dragon Ball Z, Frieza and Goku, these two characters are fighting each other, and Goku can kill Frieza in that moment, but he chooses not to. He says, no, he's like, repent, see the error of your ways, I'm letting you live, bye, and leaves it up to Frieza to choose whether he's going to reform or not. The ball's in his court, right? But he doesn't he has faith that character is going to make the right decision. Now, whether they do or not, a different story. He's like, if we can't do that, we'll never get anywhere. And then, of course, he's like, if we can't have somewhat of faith and just try, then we're going to be stuck in this darkness forever of this distrust and despair. And I love, the light showing up Megami, you don't change. There are things that can't be solved with mere kindness. So I like this message here that there are things not solved with mere kindness. That's not enough. He says that it's also necessary to be hard on people at times. It's okay to be blunt and hard on people. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that to grow. Sometimes you can't just be kind. You gotta be stern. You gotta be a teacher sometimes. And it's not fun. If you can do that, you'll be invincible. If you can be stern when needed to, as well as kind, then you'll be unstoppable, Mob. And here's hoping. So here's hoping that comes full circle in the next 2 episodes, and especially with Sarahzawa and Sho's dad. And so then he becomes the tree, right? And then luckily, the plants all die, and we see Sho's friends. I'm glad they're still alive. And Mob's like, so did Megami disappear? And Mob's like, be hard on people, huh? And then he sees the tower. He's like, I'm not very good at that. Right? So then we have this whole thing with Sho and his dad. After that. We have this whole thing with Sho and his dad. Talking about how Claw is finished. And so apparently Sho's dad has not been much of a father figure. He's like, you don't care about me at all. Sho's dad says he's going through a rebellious phase. But Sho's dad is like Gendo from Neon Genesis. I'm just going to say it. You don't even have to watch Neon Genesis to know. Sho's dad's kind of like Gendo. But he puts up this barrier, right? He puts up this barrier around him and won't let anybody near him. It's very, very, very Neon Genesis. I like it a lot because he doesn't want anybody near him. He's been stockpiling all this energy for like 20 years. And he tells Sho that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And Sarahzawa shows up with the umbrella. Sarahzawa's like in his little robe, his sweatpants, his Crocs, his shoes. Like Sarahzawa looks like he just got out of bed, grabbed an umbrella, and came to protect the boss. And he's very, very devoted. I'm so curious as to why. I feel like in the most warped ways, Sarahzawa is like Mob to Sho's dad, and how Sho's dad is like to Reagan. Except he actually has psychic powers. Reagan does not. So that's so curious. But that image of the two of them standing there, it says, my son's going through a rebellious phase. And then clearly Sarahzawa has known Sho and them for a while because he says, are you being a bad boy again? He says you'll never turn out to be a decent adult like that. He's kind of like Reagan. It's weird. Sarahzawa is kind of like Reagan, just not. It feels like Sarahzawa is like if Mob became an adult on just Reagan's words alone without his own personality. That's what Sarahzawa feels like. It's kind of interesting. And Sho's like, screw you. That was 3 months worth of energy. And then his dad is like, I've been stockpiling all this stuff for years. And Sho's like, what gives you the right to take over the world? He's like, just because you've traveled the world and nobody's as strong as you, that's not a good reason to take over the world just because you can't find someone you're equal. He's like, Sarahzawa, he's messed up in the head. And Sarahzawa's like, President, you're so cool. I want Sarahzawa to meet Reagan so badly because I feel like Sarahzawa is very impressionable. I feel like Sarahzawa is highly impressionable, and things that he thinks are cool, he just instantly goes with. And I'm like, if he thinks Sho's dad's cool, Reagan's gonna like enamor him. So I'm like, I need them to meet so that they can so that Sarahzawa can fall into the Reagan fan club. I need this to happen, please. Pretty please. Oh my god. And Sho's like, these are idiots I'm dealing with. Absolute idiots. And so he goes up next to his dad, and his dad's like, I've got all these psychic powers. And then we go back to Shimazaki. And man, Teru manages to land the hit. I want to make note that everybody's dressed in like blacks and neutral colors, with the exception of the girl. She's in like the yellow April O'Neil jumpsuit. Teru don't come to a battle unless he is fashionable. He is like got his like primary color tracksuit, his like pastel kicks. Teru showed up ready to kick ass and be stylish. I'm like, I need Teru's fashion line. I need it. But man, the animation in this episode was just really, really good. And he manages to figure out Shimazaki's moves. And Shimazaki is just like, well, I'm this powerful Esper, you can't stop me. And Teru's like, no. Teru spouts his wisdom that he learned from Mob, from the Psycho Helmet religion. He spouts his wisdom saying there are people in this world with powers you can't even fathom. He's met them, right? And he says, you're just an ordinary man. Even I could defeat you. Saying the exact same thing that Mob said to him way back when. I mean, paraphrased in a sense. And Shimazaki just can't stand it. And he decides to use his like special mind eyes power to like see everything out, see all the espers, but he doesn't see Reagan coming. And then what I like about this scene is that in this moment he senses Mob coming. And Mob is the distraction. I feel like Mob and Reagan met up and Mob was like, I'll distract him. And Reagan's like, got this. I feel like Mob distracts him long enough because all he's doing is focusing on him. And then that's when I just love that out of nowhere, like you see him powering up and Reagan just walks over and he's like, dude, I'm gonna deck you. And I love that he's like, self-defense rush. One of Reagan's special moves where when he's unsure if it's really self-defense, he yells out self-defense just in case. Oh my god, it wasn't self-defense. He was on the offense. God, I love it. I love it. Just punches the shit out of him. Oh my god. And then he just like knocks him out. But he says, I couldn't sense him at all. Who is he? Who indeed? And then everybody's like, Reagan-san, everyone get up. The great master's here. What kills me about this scene is that Shimazaki's like, the great master, don't tell me. There's an Esper who can make his presence disappear. I just love that every character in this show thinks Reagan is insanely powerful because no moron in his right mind would go up against all these Espers when he doesn't have a single power at all. So they're like, this man, there's no man on earth can have the balls this big. He has to be an Esper. I don't want Reagan to face Sho's dad because Sho's dad's a bit cray-cray and I think he would try to kill Reagan and not care, but I love that Reagan's just like, can you leave everybody alone, please? And stop. Oh my god. What should I do? Should I withdraw? And then he realizes that, and I like that he's like, how many are there? Is this just a huge organization? I'm like, no, it's just this ragtag group of people. And then he's like, this Mob kid's on another level. And you just see the power pouring out of him. So I feel like they're setting up for Mob and Sho's dad to be facing each other by the end of this. But we've got to get through Sarahzawa first. So what do we do about that? And he's like, I give up. I don't stand a chance. He's like, well, that was easy. What happened to taking over the world? He says the only one serious about that is the boss. As long as I get to have fun, I don't really care. And Mob's like, fun? He's like, you disrupted the lives of all these people just for fun? He's like, excuse me? You can't be serious. And Shimazaki just gets mad and vanishes. I love that Mob's like, Reagan, he's dangerous. And Reagan's like, oh, hey, Mob. Like they didn't plan this out. They just showed up. But yeah, Shimazaki knows. So I'm curious to see how the boss will react to Mob. And then Mob, of course, sees Ritsu. And he's like, Mom and Dad are safe. And Mob's like, oh, good. It's just like Dimple and Master said. And Dimple's like, oh, thank God. I feel like Dimple, I really would almost like Dimple to be voiced by, I would like a parody where Dimple's voiced by Brandon Rogers. I think that would be the most hilarious thing. He's like, oh dear God. Like I could just picture it in my head, him saying it. It's absolutely wonderful. But yeah, Dimple's like, whew, we had a hell of a scare. And then Reagan's like, so what do we do? He's like, shut up. All that's left is the last boss. And Hoshino-kun and the others should be getting the people to safety. And they all plan this attack. I love that when Mob says no, it's pitch black except for his eyes. I love that visual. That's so freaking cool. He's like, no. He's like, you're all hurt. I'm going to go alone. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'll go too. One of my friends. I like that Ritsu said one of my friends already went in. Like Ritsu and Sho are already buddies. They're already in the friend zone. What? Oh my God. Just like, oh my God. And Mob says, this might be hard to hear, but you'll just be in my way. And I like that Dimple's like, being hard on people. This is how Shigeo processed what Megami told him. Not being hard on people like physically, but letting them down, being like, no, I got this. I of course Mob interpreted it that way. I love it. I love it, right? And Mob's like, no, I'm going to go. And Reagan, I like that Reagan's like, okay, Mob's going in, Dimple, you watch him. I love it. I love that Dimple and Reagan have like teamed up to help protect Mob. I love it. Will Reagan sit on the sidelines and let his protege go up there alone? I don't know. But then again, Ritsu and Teru, would they let him do it either? I don't know. So, I guess we'll see. And then we have, in the final moment, Mob says, of course I'm scared, but having someone else get hurt scares me even more. So yeah, Mob has the Shilian mentality of that he'd rather hurt himself than others. Poor little Mob. Our poor little Mob. It's like, that scares me even more. And so, yeah, and then we see Sarahzawa at the top. And Dimple says, I'm trying to take advantage of him while he's like, I'm trying to take advantage of him while he's still a kid, but Shigeo's going to become an adult before I know it. Dimple's like, my plan to get this kid under my wing and to use him isn't going to work very much longer because Mob is growing up. He's becoming an adult. He's like one of the most mature middle school kids I know, right? And that's when he sends to Sarahzawa. He's like, Aru, are you in middle school? You're still a kid. He says, this is really bad. Would you kindly leave? I feel like the boss told him to go down and stop Mob. But now Sarahzawa's realized that Mob's a kid. And he's like, oh, I don't want to fight a kid. Oh, no. So what do we do with this? What do we do with this? I just don't know. But that's the episode, right? So, oh my god. So yeah, so we've got Shimazaki's ran away. We have Sarahzawa and the boss. Mob is on the way up there. Sho is there. Everyone else has been, other than Dimple's, been kindly told to step back, let them fight this out. We've got 2 episodes left. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. So it's the penultimate episode next week. And so far, this series has not let me down. So my throat's getting a little bit scratchy, so I'm not going to talk too much longer because I need to go get some more tea. But I'm very curious to know what you all think. This episode was great. Reagan did not let me down. We'll have to do a special thirst update for him next week, but I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I will be back very soon with episode 12 of Mob Psycho Season 2. Bye.